Hello, everyone. I'm Monica. I'm a developer advocate here at Starburst, and I am so excited to be with you today with our Galaxy Lab and Learn. These are my favorite kinds of events because we just get to jump into Starburst Galaxy and do a little lab. Anna has very graciously attached the docs. Under the docs tab, you have the Starburst Galaxy hands-on lab. That's all the curriculum I'm going to be going over today. Our focus is going to be around specifically securing and governing your data lake. So, and building a reporting structure, doing all of that. So, a lot of times we see people struggle. I mean, I've personally struggled with giving access to too many people within my own data sources. And so, what we want to do in this instance is we want to walk through a scenario where we're going to be doing column level masking, row level filtering, and we're also going to look at some of the data lineage in the reporting structure we build within our data lake. So that's a lot of words to say that we're just going to be doing some securing and making sure that people know when to use the data that they're supposed to use. So to follow along with our lab today, go to the docs tab in the right of the chat, and you will find the lab in there. To get started, we need to create a Starburst Galaxy account. I know some of you already have it. Thank you for my repeat labbers, because I know that some of you have already been at previous lab and learns we've done or at some of the 101. So if you have a Starburst Galaxy account from that, you do not have to sign up. If you do not have an account and you want to follow through with the lab, go ahead and do so. Sign up now, or just watch with me and then do it later on your own time. The passwords that we have available for this lab will be available for a week. If you have any questions about any of it, just ping me and I'll leave them open more. I have no problem doing that. So we'll make sure that you can actually utilize the lab material to the best of your ability. And yeah, just really excited to get started. So if you're just joining us, my name is Monica. I am a developer advocate here at Starburst. The Lab and Learns are some of my favorite labs because we've gotten feedback that we don't have to do slides and we just need to jump straight into the lab. So that's what we'll be doing. We'll be doing a full lab here with Starburst Galaxy. And in order to do so, you're going to go to the Docs tab on next to the chat, and there will be the lab guide that we're going to be going through today. If you have any questions throughout any of the lab guide, throw those questions in the chat. If you want to do the lab later, feel free, do it with recording, no big deal. The passwords will be available for a week. If you need more time, send me an email. Happy to help you out with that. So our premise today is to talk about securing your data lake. It's hard. It's hard to get the right data in the right hands of the right people. And so one of the things that we've done within Starburst Galaxy is build in row level filtering and column masking. And kind of what we like to do in these Galaxy Lab and Learns is highlight features that have been, come out new within the last quarter. So that's why we're going to be talking about that. We're going to do role-based access control. We're going to talk about attribute-based access control. We're going to talk about tagging, and we're going to showcase a little bit of data lineage. So it's a lot about that governance and about the securing of your data lake, which are both so hot topics right now in the data space. So I'm going to give you a couple more minutes if anyone else wants to sign up for Starburst Galaxy and get going. If not, I'll just start rolling. These are very similar. We're going to be doing another Pokemon demo. So if you've been to a Lab and Learn before, that's my favorite. So we're going to be doing another Pokemon demo, but it's going to be a little bit more of an extension of what we usually focus on, because we like to focus on, building within your data lake and blah, 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 all those fun things that we usually do with Starburst Galaxy. We're going to extend past that and look at the features that have come out this quarter and may be really helpful, with the theme being, like I said, securing and governing your data lake. Okay, I think I repeated myself enough that everyone has joined. Let's go ahead and jump into the lab. So I have already This is not the same material. This is slightly a little bit different. If you were at the Starburst 101s, those we like to focus on an intro into Starburst 101. We go through the modern data lake. We do a lot of things like that. The lab that we're going to do here is completely different. So, well, completely is a stretch. We're still going to be building a reporting structure within our data lake. We're still going to be connecting to two data sources. The two data sources will be different. And really the focus here is going to be on tagging your data products, tagging your data, and implementing that security within role-based access control for row filtering and column masking. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We don't get to that in Starburst 101. This is kind of like a little build on that and a little focus in that security and governance area. So if that makes sense, we're going to jump in right now. So if you have been to a Starburst 101 before, it will seem a little bit similar in the beginning when we're connecting our catalogs. But once we get started, the real meat and potatoes, we'll get to the row level filtering and the column-based masking. And that's really what I want to focus on today about, making sure that you can secure and give the right access to the right people when you need it. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to go ahead and create a catalog. I've got my S3 catalog that I want to create. I skipped down to page 6 of the lab guide, so go ahead and look at page 6 if you've already gotten your Galaxy account signed up and created. I just want to create an S3 account. This is what I'm going to be building my reporting structure, and it's my data lake reporting structure. So if you've been around with Starburst before, you know that we like to build within our data lake. We have different, like the medallion architecture. We do the same thing with the land layer, the structure layer, and the consume layer. We're going to be doing all of that in the data lake architecture. So we need to create a catalog to connect to that. So I've got my catalog name, and I'm just going to add a description. You do not need an S3 account. You can go ahead and utilize the passwords that I have within the lab guide. That will allow you to do everything that we do within the lab. And those passwords will be available for the next week. If you need more time or if you want more effort, then go ahead and if you want more time or you want more information, then go ahead and just email me, and I'm happy to work with you for that. So can we connect catalogs from both AWS and BigQuery and Galaxy and join across them? The answer is it depends. Yes, we have cross catalog and cross region. You do have to pay a little bit extra. It's not in our free tier, but the answer is yes. And then just work with Starburst. I'm happy to be your intro person, and I can get you where we need to go for you to be able to do that. Okay, so what I've done here while I've been answering questions is I have plugged in a catalog name. I've added a description. I have also done an authentication to S3 where I've put the access keys from the lab guide. If you're wondering how I'm getting any of this information, it's all in the lab guide. I'm just copying the lab guide. And now I'm going to put in the Metastore information for my S3 bucket name. So we're going to use the Starburst 101 infrastructure today. So just so we can have something. And I'm going to do my name as Monica Miller. And I want to allow creating two external tables and writing so that we're able to integrate across everything. I want my default table format to be Iceberg. And I'm just going to test that connection really quick. And then I'm going to connect that catalog. I also want to set the permissions that I have available here. So I'm going to hit Save Access Controls, just giving the account admin all the permissions to mess with the catalog. And the next thing, how we can connect the catalog. Do you mean, have you started with, what I did is I went to the catalogs pane here. I can redo it. Let's go back. But I went to the catalogs pane here. And if I delete, let's just start over. So I've started on page 6 of the lab guide, and what I went up here and did is I hit Create Catalog. The next thing I did is I selected the S3 catalog right here. We're going to use that for our data lake. I then click that catalog, and I'm going to put the catalog name, the description, and the access information. So the first thing we need to do for our data sources is actually give the connections available, and then we'll build a cluster for that compute. So we got our S3 catalog where we've started the information. I'm then going to put the access key info in right here, that is on page 7 of your lab guide. There's a little bit of confusion just in the chat really quick that I want to call out. I have given you passwords. So you get to use all of this for free. All of the information you can go through and do for the lab. It's in the Docs tab under Goldcast, and you will be able to download a lab guide, and that has all the information for you. That way you can run this lab with me. I would be so hurt if you weren't able to do that because you thought that I didn't give you access data. Having data sources available is a big deal for me. So yes, all of the data is available for you. It will be available for a week. All of the password information. So I've got the access key information. I've got the secret key information. All of this is in the lab guide on page 7, and that's where I'm starting. And I am going to add the Starburst 101 hands-on lab bucket name on page 7. And then I'm going to jump in and put a default directory name. Let's just go with my name. And then I want to allow creating to the external tables and writing to the external tables. Good morning, Michael. And now I'm going to click Connect Catalog. So that is our first catalog done. And I want to hit Save Access Controls. I'm going to skip for now, adding it to a cluster. We'll build our cluster later. The next thing I want to do is actually go to page 10 because we've done all of that as we're building out our cluster. And I want to build my second catalog. One of the secret powers that we have when we're doing using Trino is that you can federate queries from different data sources. So I'm going to now grab the Snowflake data source. I want it to be in the AWS cloud provider region for now. And then now I'm going to enter the information on page 10 so that I have a second catalog that I can then federate with, and we're going to do a join between. So this is going to be my lookup information for my Pokemon data. Basically, we're going to have a bunch of different Pokemon and all of the different things in S3. And what we'll be doing is federating and building out that data in our data lake using data that is within our orbit in the data lake, not just within the data lake. So that's really one of the special things that we allow you to do is activate the data that's in and around your lake. So I've got the name of the Snowflake catalog. I've got the, oh, I put the wrong description. That's why I need to focus on one thing. We've got the catalog name. I'm now going to add the description from page 10, and then I'm going to go and add the Snowflake account identifier, which again, this is all laid out. If you've just joined, it's under the Docs tab. The lab guide is available for you. And now I'm going to add the username and password. We're going to get all of that information ready to go so that we can go forward. And I'm adding just the infrastructure of like, I want to connect to this database and this specific Snowflake warehouse using our Starburst 101 role. So I'm going to hit test connection, and I'm going to connect that catalog. I also want to save the access controls here. I want the account admin to have permissions to do anything that they want within that catalog. Now I'm going to hit skip. And the next thing we're going to do is on page 12, we are going to navigate to the clusters tab, and we are going to build our cluster. And that cluster is going to give us the compute power to connect both of our catalogs that we just created. So we're going to be able to then run and power the queries from our S3 data lake and our Snowflake catalog. And then we can also cross them in between because we are using a free cluster, but it's in the same region. So now I'm going to go to the clusters tab right here. And I want to hit create a cluster. And this is on page 12, and we're going to go forward from there. So the cluster name I want is just Pokemon Analysis. Just going to copy paste there. I want to select both the different catalogs I just created. And then I'm going to select my cloud provider region. So just a reminder here, we've selected the AWS Pokemon catalog and the Pokemon lookup catalog. And then I have the cloud provider region that I've selected, US East Ohio. We're going to just do a standard cluster, free cluster. If you want to bump up the auto suspend, I'm going to do it for 30 minutes. And then I'm just going to hit create cluster. So now we're going to see our new cluster starting to power up so that we're ready to get going and power our queries. So one thing that we've touched upon briefly, not in Starburst 101, but on the last Galaxy Lab and Learn was schema discovery. But being that it's my favorite feature, we're going to do it again. Basically, what schema discovery lets you do is it lets you basically not know any of the information that you have within an object storage location, and it will build something for you, which is awesome because a lot of the times I spent trying to figure out where data lived as a data engineer and didn't really know. And if I was able to just run a command that could give me some information, I would have been very thankful. So to go and utilize schema discovery, what we're going to do is we are going to hit catalogs. And then we're going to go to AWS Pokemon catalog that we created. And we're going to navigate here to schema discovery. So this is on page 15. What we're going to do is we're going to start by just clicking run schema discovery, and we're going to put in the URL found on page 16 so that we can figure out like what data is in there because we don't know. I mean, pretend that I know you certainly may not know. I mean, I do know because of my behind the scenes nature, but what if you were doing this and you've never seen the data before? So what we have here is we have our run discovery button. And what we're doing with this little information is we're adding the location privilege so that you can query in that location, which is awesome. It just is giving you an extra check. Basically, one of Starburst Galaxy's powers is that it lets you really fine tune your access control to a specific level of granularity, and one of those being locations within your object storage connector. So, or I think that that's super powerful. And what we're going to just automatically roll that into our schema discovery, as opposed to if you've done any labs before with me, you have to go in and like manually add that. So I'm just going to add the specific location that is on page 16, going to check add privilege. I'm going to leave the default schema as discovered schema, and then I want to click full discovery. And now I'm just going to hit run discovery. Welcome, Ian. Thank you for joining us. And now we are scanning throughout. We're looking for our information in that object storage location, and you can see that we've pulled back a table for our Pokemon table. So now I'm just going to check the boxes and click create all. That's going to create a schema and it's going to create a table so that I can view that data in that location. Super awesome because a lot of times you would spend just waiting and hoping and figuring it out. So if you were to click on the table, you can see all of the information it went through to create that table with the external location. And now what we're going to do is, okay, you don't see Pokemon tables in Discovery. Did you add the full URL in the, yes, okay. Well, if we run Discovery again, let's see. Well, let's go ahead and I'm going to keep moving, but we'll come back to that. If there's any questions, we can help debug that later. There's also a command I can get you to build out the table, and then you can just do it that way too. But essentially, we've run schema discovery, clicked the full discovery icon. Let's also take a little detour. If you go to roles and privileges and hit account admin, you can go to privileges and add the privilege of the location. And if you add that storage location, it should be able to give you the information for that location. So I'm putting that in here and you should be good to go. So all I did there was look at another way of making sure that we have the privileges for our location so that you can find the Pokemon tables. Okay, so we've got the check, we're good to go. And now I have created my tables. And now I just want to navigate to the query editor and I want to look at the log events that were available. And now I just want to validate it. So I'm on page 18. And if I look in here, I can see my Pokemon lookup. I can also see the discovered schema. If you're having an issue and you weren't able to create it, we can shortcut that a little bit. I'm just going to run a show create table statement and I'll send that statement to you and then you should be able to continue on. That way we don't have any issues. So we're starting up the server, getting it ready to go. I guess I could have shown it from Schema Discovery instead, but we'll copy it from here. Oh, I'm running the wrong cluster. So up here in the top, you want to make sure you're using Pokemon analysis. And then I'm going to run this command really quick just to show that this is how they created it from the schema discovery. So I'm going to paste this in the chat for anyone struggling. If you want to go ahead and just run that command, you should be able to create the same table. Now what I want to do is select the catalog that I'll be utilizing. So I'm going to just select the AWS Pokemon catalog. And now I just want to validate the rows came in from Schema Discovery looking okay. So I am going to select here. And yep, we can see that we've got a little bit of all of the information we need. We have identifiers on our Pokemon. Basically, this is just the Pokemon sightings within the entire country. And we're looking at, the identifier, some tokens of where it hashed, and then we have the name of the Pokemon, the latitude, the longitude, and then how long the Pokemon was there and when did it disappear. So we've got this information already built for us. And the really cool thing is, like, when we talk about a reporting structure, basically Schema Discovery has already done 1/3 of the work for us because we have our land layer built. Our land layer is ready to go. That's our raw data that lives in S3 that is just ingested. And using Schema Discovery, we can automatically schedule that so that it happens, I don't know, every 30 minutes, every 15 minutes, every hour, every day, whatever you need, you can schedule that so that you have the data specifically ready to go in your land layer within whatever time you need. So we've got that specific land layer completed. And now we're going to move on to the structure layer, which is talking about, this is where we want to do our data transformations. We want to optimize our data. We want to clean it. We want to do any of the work we need to do on our data to put it into that final form that we then want presented to our data consumers. So we've got our land layer done. What I want to do is create a schema. So I'm on page 19. I'm just going to create a schema using AWS Pokemon, and I'm going to put my name, which is Monica. So I'm going to write Monica, and I'm going to run. And what this is going to do is this is going to create a place where I can write my two tables that I'm going to be going forward. So it's going to create a place where I can write my structure table and my consume table. So the structure table being the table that I'm cleaning and optimizing, and the consume layer table being the table that I'm presenting to my final consumers. That's where we would create a data product. We're not going to be doing that today, but just in case you've been around with on any of the other things, that's where the data product would live. So I am just going to verify that I've got a schema created in the catalog. So I'm just going to pop that open again and see if we're good to go. Got a Monica schema, so I'm ready to rumble. And I just want to click Monica in the top corner here so that all of the commands going forward make sense. That's just a special trick that we use so that any of the commands in the lab guide are still separate from you, but are able to be built within your schema. So the next thing we're going to be doing is building our structure layer. So that's the enriched, the cleansed, the transformed data. And that's really simple. We're just going to do a quick table that we're going to build. So I'm going to copy over the command from page 20, where I have a structure table for the Pokemon. And I'm going to be changing some of the data types. And I'm also going to be changing the format and the table format. So we've now got it a little bit more optimized. It's going from Hive to Iceberg. We're selecting the right data types, and we're taking out some of the cruft that we don't need from columns that just aren't, beneficial to our analysis downstream. So the next thing that we've got our table created, I want to do is I want to insert the data into that table. So I am going to run this command where I'm able to cast the information for specific data types that I need a different data type. I'm going to round the latitude and longitude, make it more efficient, and I'm going to do a transformation on our encounter milliseconds. So that's how long the Pokemon was available. I want to put it into seconds. So I'm having a little case statement here where I'm going to run that command. So I'm going to hit insert. And essentially what this is doing a full historical load. And as you're building out a data pipeline, you can automate this process in the future with an orchestration tool like Airflow, Prefect, Dagster, whatever one that you prefer. And essentially what that will do is it will make it so you don't have to insert. You can do merge, you can do whatever you need to build your table. We are just doing this as we're building the reporting structure. So I like to call that out and show that you can do whatever you need to do an insert update as opposed to doing just a big full insert. So that's something that you can make automatic as you're going through. So our next step is just to validate that the structure table looks okay. We're going to look at the rounding, make sure that worked, and the encounter seconds. Believe it or not, this is indeed less than the seconds that we had. Yes, Mike, I believe so. I will get you a firm confirmation in a follow-up email. My answer is yes, but I don't know how, so I will figure that out for you. So basically we've got all of the information with the number, the latitude, the longitude. We're good to go. Our structure table is built. And the last thing we want to do is build our consume layer. Perfect. I will email both of you. Okay, so we've got our structure built, and now we're going to do our final consume table. So we're not doing any special transformations on this table. We're just doing a join. So we are joining the data that lives in the structure table. So that's just the encounter information of each Pokemon with the information in the Pokédex that lives in Snowflake. I don't know why I always think the lookup tables are like higher, but must be back to my data stage days. So essentially, we're going to be joining those two tables together and pulling that in as one. So I'm going to hit run, and we're going to create that final table, the Pokemon final spawns table, and that's what we're going to be doing all of our security in. So we're going to do the row level filtering and the column masking on this going forward. Okay, so I have created the table, and now I'm just going to select from the information. So I'm going to hit select. Okay, everything looks good. You can see that we're joining the data together. And now I want to do some data lineage. So we're going to look at that reporting structure built out within our S3 reporting structure. So I'm going to, or within our S3 data lake. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to search for catch rate, because catch rate is one of the columns, and I just want to look at all the results. What we just did is called global search. It's this awesome, powerful tool that lets you look through all of the data sources you've connected for the things that you want and that are interesting to you and what you need to do going forward. So what I want to do is just look deeper into the catch rate. You can also filter, and we're going to select the one from the AWS Pokemon, but I just want to look at the Pokemon final spawns from the catch rate that ties back to the S3 consume table. So I'm going to hit open details. And then I want to look at this handy dandy lineage tab. So you can see here, like before, the catalog information gives you a ton of interesting metadata that you can figure out, especially for debugging purposes. It's so hard to figure out where your data is coming from, or who owns a table, or where when anything that like that. So we've got the columns information, which you can fill out descriptions. We'll be tagging it later, just a sneak preview for the future. And then we also have the metrics, definition, data preview, all that jazz that you can do. So we've got the lineage information, which is super powerful. And what this has done is it's created basically the information and the SQL transformations that you've done to build this final table, which is so helpful. I used to have to build lineage diagrams by hand, going in and reading the data from each specific transformation and figuring it out just looking at the code. So to have something that generates for me would be very thankful. So basically, if we click on our Pokemon final spawns data lineage, you can see that we have the structure table and the Pokédex lookup connecting to our final consume output. And we can look at all of the column names, and you can see that we can build out a bunch of different metadata information here so that anyone who's coming in after us could view that information, which is very helpful. So now I just want to look at the transformation button right here. I'm going to click on that. And you can see we have a version history. We can look at the input tables. We can view the output tables. We can view all of the basic information that ran that, between that transformation. And we can even look at the SQL statement that we performed to get that information there, which is, again, super valuable as you're debugging, as you're trying to learn the lineage. If you have any sort of compliance information that you need, this is super helpful in doing that regulatory compliance work. So now what I want to do is on page 26, I want to navigate back to the query editor, and I want to show you the version history that you can see with data lineage. Now, I don't want to undersell this. This is super cool because I just have struggled a lot with figuring out where data was coming from, how the changes have happened before. And essentially what we're going to do is let's drop the table we just created and let's add 2 more columns. And let's see what happens on the lineage side for us. So I've hit drop table, and now I'm going to click create table. And we've added the HP column and the abilities column. So we've created our final table. And now if we go back to our lineage and we look again at the information that we have within our Pokemon spawns final table, we'll be able to see a difference between the 2 SQL statements that are available to us. So we can go up here into the version history and click, and we can actually look at both of them and see them compared side by side, which is super awesome. So you can look at the transformation we did a couple of minutes ago, and then you can look at the transformation that we just completed to add those 2 rows. So column level lineage is coming. It's on its way. I don't know if I was supposed to say that, but it's in the process of being worked. And so we'll see if that lands. But essentially, column level lineage will be even further. So right now we have it at the table based, table information, and you'll be able to do column level lineage even more. So next thing I want to do is just build out some of the information within our metadata. So I'm going to add a description, which is super helpful. So I'm just, if anyone is looking at the information later, and then I'm also going to add a contact information. So I'm going to add myself. I am the poor soul that is going to be contacted in case this breaks. And now what I want to do is just look at all of the lineage back and kind of show the reporting structure that we've built within our table. So you can see that we have our 3 layers of our data lake. This is our LAN layer. This is the raw data that was just dumped in. We have the structure layer, which is the layer that we transformed, and you can see that transformation here. And then we have the table that we joined with, our external table that our Snowflake table that we then joined together to build our consume layer that's ready to be sent into the world to our data consumers. So that's a little bit about lineage and building that reporting structure and being able to clean and understand and organize your data lake. And now let's switch over to the securing your data lake part. So here we're going to use role-based access control, attribute-based access control, and tagging to make it so that specific people can only access the data in the correct format. Super powerful if you have any PII data, you've got any sort of filtering that you need to do because you don't want specific people to see. Like maybe you have a fraud team internally and you want to make sure that employees are doing the right thing. You can only have those people see specific rows and the rest of the team not see anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating a new role. So I'm going to navigate down to the roles and privileges tab right here under access control. Now I'm going to hit roles and privileges and I'm going to add a role. And the role I'm going to add is named San Francisco Data Analysts. And I am going to add the description that says this role is for data analyst and it's about performing specific analysis within the San Francisco region. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a role that's only accounting for data in the latitude and longitude of the specific San Francisco region. So we're going to use that for a row filter. So I'm going to hit add role. Make sure you have grant creating check to the role off. We don't want to do that. We want to go in and manually add that ourselves. So now we see the 3 different roles and we're going to click within the role we just added. And I'm going to add myself as a user. And that way I can test it and make sure that everything is validated as needed. But it also means that the roles don't inherit each other. If you had a grant to the creating role, then the roles would be intertied, and we don't want to do that. We want to make sure the role is separate and that I'm just able to test back and forth, or you doing the lab are able to test back and forth. And so I have added myself as a user to this role. And now what I want to do is go back to the catalogs and grant that role access to that final table. Notice they will not get access to everything. They will only get access to that final table. And that's because they're just the final data consumer analyst. And we want them to only have read access to our select table. So I'm going to navigate to the AWS Pokemon. I want to look at my specific table that I created within my schema. So I'm going to look at this Pokemon Final Spawns table, and I'm going to navigate to the Privileges tab. And in the Privileges tab, what I want to do is hit Add Privilege, and I want to select the San Francisco analyst, and I want to make sure that they have select access from the table. And I'm going to hit Add Privileges. So now my account admin and my San Francisco data analyst should have access to this table. One will have a lot more access than the other. And the next thing I want to do is kind of test that role and verify that we've set it up correctly. So I'm going to go in the top right corner here up, and I'm going to click on the San Francisco data analyst role. If you don't see it, make sure you remember to add yourself as a user to that role. So now we can see we're in the San Francisco data analyst role, and I'm going to go to the query editor. And the next thing is just run a basic select to see if I get a result back. And so I'm going to be running this as a San Francisco data analyst. You see that I return all the information that I need. We're able to read that final table. And just an interesting tidbit here, if you're before, when we had the account admin access, you'll see a lot more over here. And that's because account admin created those tables. They have access to those tables. The data analysts do not. So now I just want to try deleting from this table as an analyst and see what happens. Just run the delete statement on page 30 of the lab, and you'll see that we have access denied. So we're not able to actually run anything against that table, which is exactly what we want. If I navigate back to the account admin role in the top right corner and run that command, you'll see that we are able to actually finish and get a result as opposed to the access denied. So we've got through that information, and now we've tested the role, and we're going to start creating our tags. So I'm going to navigate down to the tags information on the axis control. And this is where we get a little tag crazy. We're going to create 4 different tags that we're going to put throughout our data so that it can be more discoverable, it can be more understandable, you can have more information about your, who's using what, and you can do that attribute-based access control that is built on our tagging structure. So I'm going to create a first tag on page 35. I'm going to put SF region. And what this tag purpose is going to be, it's only considering Pokemon spawns within the San Francisco Bay Area. So we're a little bit forward thinking with this tag because what we're going to do is put a description for the specific use. This tag is a little bit different to the rest of the tags we're going to be creating. This tag we're specifically going to assign to a role, to a table that's going to be used by a role by that San Francisco data analyst role. So I'm just going to pick this color. You can also do nested tags. We're not going to mess with that today. If you want more information, I'm happy to send it to you. And I'm going to create my first tag. So this one will be built. We'll put it out through our data, and you'll be able to see how we can build the row level filtering off of that tag. The next tag we're going to create is a geolocation tag. And this tag is just something that we're going to use in our environment over and over for whenever we have data that is derived from latitude and longitude. This is more of a generic tag for any of our data. So I'm going to just make it a purple one, and I'm going to click create tag. Tagging is a little bit special in Starburst Galaxy. Well, special. It's unique in the sense that you can tag. It's a 2-level hierarchy, but you can tag almost anything. So you'll see the tags with columns. We'll put it on a table. We'll even put it on a schema potentially if we want to try that as well. So we've built our 2 tags. The next one we want to do is on page 37. We're going to build a transformation tag. And this one we built because we just want to know which columns have been transformed or altered when you're building out your reporting structure in your data lake, because sometimes that's where stuff can go wrong. So if you have like an update from the data from your source data coming in, and maybe your pipeline's not working and it's because they changed the format without telling you, this is where lineage and tagging would be super helpful, because that is where you would check first, or at least where I would check first, of like, oh, did that cause the error of, maybe the fields didn't match up, the data type's wrong, they removed a column. That's where I would look. So we're going to just add a transformation tag, going to make it pink. And then the last tag we're going to do is our name tag. And so I'm just going to create a tag that says name. And what we're going to do here is, this is like super important if you have any PII data. We're going to hide the name of some of our Pokemon, and we're going to mimic it like it's the name of some of our PII of like the personal information of some of our customers. Maybe we have data that's going to people that don't need it, or sales, or maybe you don't want certain marketing people to reach out, and so you're just trying to automate that data. We're going to use the name tag. And so I'm going to just build a description that says when you want to mask individual names, that's what you're going to do. And I'm going to pick that blue color, so we're in theme, and I'm going to create tags. So by the end of page 37, you should have 4 different tags. And essentially, we're going to use those tags to build out the row level filtering and the column masking. So before doing that, I'm going to navigate back to the catalogs, and I'm going to go into that Pokemon final spawns table once again, because I need to build out that table and assign the tags as I see fit. So I'm going to click on that table, and I'm going to add the geolocation tag and the SF region tag to the Pokemon final spawns table. So this is just saying the SF region is the one that we talked about. This is going to be utilized within our role, because role-based access control and attribute-based access control, we're using them together to basically create this tag-like structure where you can secure your data super close to however you need. And then we're also just going to tag it with geolocation, because the data is based on those Pokemon spawns, which is the latitude and the longitude. So I am going to click save here. And the next thing I want to do is look at the columns and add the tags that I need for those transformation columns and for that name column. So I'm going to go to the name and I am going to click add tag for the name. That's the first one I'm going to do. You'll see here. And next, I want to add the transformation tag to 3 different columns. So I'm going to add it to the encounter seconds column because we did that case statement on it. And then I'm going to add it to the latitude and longitude, which is because we rounded the data and that might be a key going forward, if anything happens with it, just to look into that information. So adding that tag to the latitude and longitude. And our final column output should look like this. And you can see we've got these pretty little grayed out colors because they have inherited the tag from the parent table. So it's a lot of granularity and it's really helpful when you're trying to specifically build those column masks or the row filters or any sort of thing that you need down to a specific granularity level of a column. So we've got our tagging done. Our tagging infrastructure is set up for this specific table. And I am going to go create a row filter. So I'm going to click on this row filter tab in our left side navigation, and I'm going to hit create a filter. I'm on page 39. And what I'm going to do is just copy the information for the name, the description, and the filter expression so that we're ready to go. So what this is doing is it's adding basically a filter to only look for data within the San Francisco latitude and longitude region that we've specified. This is just simply, that where clause logic where we're adding that information, but it lets you do it on the table only for a specific row, as opposed to having 2 different tables that you need to maintain, or basically some sort of just where clause you have to write every single time when you're viewing your data. So now I'm going to hit create row filter. And I'm going to go look at the roles and privileges tab and click within our San Francisco data analysts. And I want to look at the policies information. And I'm just going to add a policy that then utilizes that row filter we created. So I am going to click in the information and copy that over on page 40. So I'm going to add the policy name. Oops, I put a space in front of it. I'm going to add the filter information. And I'm just going to leave this toggle off for now. I don't have an expiration. The catalog and the information I want to select is the AWS Pokemon one because that's where my table lives. It's in the Monica schema. And the table is specifically the Pokemon Final Spawns table. And what I'm going to do is I want to find for the policy where I have that SF region tag we created. So that's kind of where we have the tag-based, attribute-based access control, where we're able to create the attributes based on the tags that we've put in place. So I'm going to write the command that you need within the information. Sorry, I'm going to copy over here. And I need to take out one of those. And basically, this is the matching expression that we're going to build our policy around for that specific table. So I'm going to click next. And on page 41, you will see that the last step is to add that row filter that we created in our previous step. So I'm going to navigate down and I'm going to click on the San Francisco Pokemon section. And over here, you can see we've defined the policy details. So we're looking at the name. What's it going to be doing? We've looked at the scope. Where is it going to be enacted? And what is it going to be doing? And that's our last step here to submit that row filter. It's going to be filtering data that's only in that San Francisco region that we're specifically wanting. So now I'm going to hit create policy. And you can see we now have something under our San Francisco data analyst role to specifically build on the tag that we've created and we've properly tagged. So next step is we're going to go test it. We're going to see if it worked. I'm going to navigate up here to the San Francisco data analyst role. And let's see what pops up here. We're going to load. We can see we should be able to see the table as we've already tested. And now what I want to do is select a count on the final table. So I'm going to select run using the San Francisco data analyst role. And you can see that we have about 97,000 rows. If I am to navigate back to the account admin role and run the exact same command, you will see that we have about 314,000. So that's showing we're doing a lot of the different, like a smaller piece of the pie. And the next thing we can test is looking at the min and max of the latitude and longitude within those specific two roles. So I'm going to run the command on page 42. And what I'm going to do is identify with the account admin role, what is the max, what's the min of each. So you can see we've got a max of 139. We've got a min latitude of 32, and then 43 strikes out to me as a big number. So if we are to navigate back to the San Francisco data analyst role and rerun that command, everyone remember a number, you can see that it's a lot more within our parameters, only picking those rows that are within the latitude and longitude. So that is a little bit of the information of the row-based filtering. And we could dive in more if you're interested about, looking specifically at the rows. If we want to do just a little bit of an information, a little scan, everything else looks similar, but you can see just based off of like eye check that it's all within that specific region that we put within our tag. So just filtering out the rows that you need only for a specific region. It's awesome. The data analysts are only going to have to utilize the data that's important to them. We don't have to maintain a copy of the table. And going forward, we are ready to still utilize that. And we could create a data product from all of this and give the people what they need based off of the tags that we've created and the roles in the attributes we've applied. So last but not least, we're going to navigate back and do the column level masking, which is a lot bigger of a deal when you're dealing with the sensitive data. While the name of the Pokemon might not matter as much as maybe the personal information that you're giving to whatever website or like cookies or anything, whatever's happening with the name of the people that you have, your customers who you want to protect, those names we're going to mask and we're going to pretend that it's something super important like that, or like a social security number or like a credit card number, any of that information that you might need masked within the personal information, or if you just don't want people seeing that row because they don't have access to it. So we're going to navigate back to our account admin role. And what I want to do is I want to go to the roles and privileges tab again, and I want to click on the San Francisco data analyst tab. And I want to, again, click on the policies. We're going to create another policy, and this one is going to be based on the column. So, and we can add that policy here. But sorry, I skipped a step. I'm just going to look at the column masks that we have already created. These are standard issued, just out there for you. We're going to be using the mask full string, but there's different column expressions that you can choose from. You can create your own. You'd simply do that just by creating the column mask, adding the description and the expression that you want. So we're going to go back to where I skipped. So the roles and privileges, San Francisco data analyst, back to the policies and create that second policy for the column masking. And the reason we don't want to do these together is because we want the column mask to be separate and be, only for what we need built in. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to add all of the information on page 43 to create my column mask and define that policy. And so I'm just going to put something super generic because, again, the reason we're not tying it together is in case we want to use this mask policy on any of the other tables we build in the future. And then I'm going to hit next, and I want to, again, click the AWS Pokemon catalog, the Monica schema, and the table that I want to create or click is the Pokemon final spawns table. And now we're going to use the matching expression that we used. We're going to base it on the column name that we put together earlier in our lab. So we specifically built that name column so that we can use that. It's reproducible on any different table. All you have to do is just go in and create the policy for it, but it would just be the same matching expression, oops, of hashtag name. So we've got that information, and now we're ready to click next and actually add the privileges that we want. So I am going to click on the scope of the column masks. I want to put the Pokemon final spawns table. I want it to be mask full string. And what that's going to say is it's going to replace the name with name as masked. So we've got our policy details defined. We've got our scope defined of where we want that applied. And then now we're ready to actually apply the column masks that we wish. So I'm going to hit create policy. So now we have two. We've secured a lot in that specific, in an hour, we've done a lot of securing. And now I want to just test that column mask policy. So I'm going to go up here into my account admin, and I'm going to go to the query editor, and I'm just going to run a basic select. Validate that I can return all of the data now in the account admin role, that we didn't do something funky behind the scenes. And now I'm going to switch, and I'm going to click on the San Francisco data analyst role. And I'm going to rerun that select command and see what happens. And here you'll see all the return we have is name is masked, as opposed to the specific return of the name that we want. And that is, again, because we were able to go in to our Pokemon spawns table, add that tag that says name, and then build around it a specific policy for our column-based masking. So this is the key to the game here, is being able to have that tags properly, and you can then replicate that tag other places as necessary. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat. I will capture them all up. If I can't answer them live, I will then send you back an email. But I just really appreciate you spending your time with me. And again, go ahead and utilize the lab. You'll have the passwords available for a week. And if you have any questions, go ahead and reach out to me, and I'll sit here for a couple minutes to capture anything else and make sure that we're all ready to go. Thank you.